woke up like half an hour ago. Still, like I knew that I would still be jet lagged a week after coming back from Japan, so that's why I put it on this Saturday. Yeah, I didn't go to sleep till like 5 a.m. last night. Cause I took a nap. Regrettably, I took a nap after our stream yesterday. At like what, 10 until like midnight, and I couldn't. And I woke up and I was like, oh crap! I should probably wake up. I shouldn't keep sleeping. So I woke up and I couldn't fall back asleep until like 5. But I knew it. I knew this would happen. So that's why I chose today. So I literally got out of bed like half an hour ago just to make sure everything was working properly. And then I was just scrolling through Twitter so I wouldn't fall back asleep. Okay, let's see. I got my pages pinned down so I know where to start and end, because I'm like, I won't be able to do it today. So I did it yesterday. I hope everyone's having a very good day, a very good morning. So yeah, and yesterday I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to treat myself for waking up early to read. So I made an appointment at a reservation. I made a reservation at Original Pancake House. So after I'm done, I'm gonna go get some pancakes. Alright. I guess I'll start. So last time we left off, we read or learned that Etsuko's dad passed away and her older sister got married. So we learned about those two types of quote-unquote funerals. Yeah, I didn't even wash my face at all, so like my eyes are still like cookie. Am I dedicated or what? Alright, so we're going to read chapter 9 through 12 today. So those 4 chapters. And chapter 9 is titled The Story of a Marionette. Is that like a doll? Puppet? Find out. Let me just stretch a bit before we start. Oh my goodness. Okay. So the story of a marionette. On the first day of Urabon, when I was 12 years old, Ishi brought a new ornament for my hair and placed it just in front of the big stand-up bow knot. It was a silver shield set in a mass of small loose silver flowers and looked very beautiful against the shiny black background. It was sent to you by Honorable Ido grandmother, she said. She had it made from melted ancient coins, and it is very wonderful. Oh, that sounds cool. I turned my face in the direction of Tokyo and bowed a silent thank you to the kind invisible donor. Just who Honorable Ido grandmother was, I did not know. Each year, ever since I could remember, I had received a beautiful gift from her for our midsummer festival of Urabon. In a vague way, I was conscious that our family had some close connection with her, but I gave it no thought. All little girls had grandmothers. Some had 2, and some still more. Of course, grandmothers on the mother's side lived elsewhere, but it was not unusual for our father to have both his mother and grandmother living in his home. Old people were always welcome, their presence giving dignity to the family. The house of a son who had the care of 3 generations of parents was called the honored seat of the aged. So multiple generation households. Yeah, that's really common in Asian households. Yeah, my dad's parents passed away when he was very young, so I never had that experience where my grandparents were living with us. So we only had my mom's parents, but they live far away, like, which is true to what she just said. your mother's parents lived far away, so I only got to see them occasionally. See, Urabon, a welcome to souls returned, was our festival to celebrate the annual visit of O Shorai-sama, a term used to represent the combined spirits of all our ancestors. It was the most dearly loved of our festivals, for we believe that our ancestors never lost their loving interest in us, and this yearly visit kept fresh in all our hearts a cheerful and affectionate nearness to the dear ones gone. Urabon? Sounds like Obon, right? The Obon festival? In preparation for the arrival of O Shorai-sama, the only standards were cleanliness and simplicity, everything being done in an odd, primitive fashion, not elaborated, even in the slightest degree, from Bon festivals of the most ancient time. For several days, everyone had been busy. Gia and another man had trimmed the trees and hedges and swept all the ground, even under the house, and had carefully washed off the stepping stones in the garden. The floor mats were taken out and whipped dustless with bamboo switches. Keen and Toshi, in the meantime, making the air resound with the pata 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 of paper dusters against the shoji, and the long drawn out suiishi of steaming hot padded cloths pushed up and down the polished porch floors. All the woodwork in the house, the broad ceiling boards, the hundreds of tiny white bars across the paper doors, the carved ventilators, and the mirror-like posts and platforms of the tokonomas was wiped off with hot water. Then every little broken place in the rice paper shoji was mended, and finally the entire house, from the thatch to the underfloor icebox, was as fresh and clean as rainwater falling from the sky. Yeah, this reminded me of when I was in Japan a few days ago. A lot of or I should say the Japanese, they are really good about cleanliness. Like every morning I'd see people cleaning or scrubbing stuff outside their home, or if they're like they own like a shop, they're all like wiping the windows or scrubbing the patios. And I even saw like some people who worked underground in the subways. They're like cleaning the little water rivers down there. Yeah, in the subway there's like these little slits in the by the walls that water runs through. And like I can see some of the workers, like they're cleaning stuff in there to make sure there's no hair or like little bits of garbage. So yeah, I was really surprised on how diligent they were about all that. Not something you see here in the US every day. Let's see. Mother brought from the go down a rare old kakemono, one of the father's treasures, and after it was hung, Keen placed beneath it our handsomest bronze vase holding a big loose bunch of 7 grasses of autumn. Althea, pampas, convolvulus, wild pink, and 3 kinds of asters, purple, yellow, and white. These are mostly flowers, but Japanese designated all plants that grow from the ground in slender blade-like leaves as grasses. The shrine was, of course, the most important of all, and it was there the spirit guests lived during the days of the visit. Chia had gone to the pond before dawn to get lotus blossoms, for it is only with the first rays of the sunrise that the puff comes. Oh. Which opens the pale green buds into snowy beauty. Before he returned, the shrine had been emptied and cleaned, and the bronze Buddha reverentially dusted and returned to his place on the gilded lotus. The tablet holding the ancestors' names and father's picture, which mother always kept in the shrine, were wiped off carefully. The brass openwork, everlasting light, lantern filled afresh with rapeseed oil, the incense burner, the candle stands, the sacred books, and our rosaries, all arranged in place, and the ugly fish-mouthed wooden drum, which is typical of woman's submissive position, rubbed until the worn place on the red lacquer was a shiny brown. Then Jia covered the floor before the shrine with a fresh, rudely woven mat of pampas grass and placed on either side of the vase holding branches of the 7 grasses of autumn. But the most interesting time of all came when Honorable Grandmother and I sat down before the shrine to prepare the decoration of welcome. I always loved to help her do this. Ishi and Toshi brought us some odd-shaped vegetables that they had brought us some odd-shaped vegetables they had found in the garden, a handful of dried hemp stems from which the bark had been removed, and yards of somen, a sort of soft, pliable macaroni. Macaroni! Honorable Grandmother took a crooked-necked cucumber, one end of which was shaped something like a lifted head, and made it into a horse, using corn silk for mane and tail and hemp stems for stiff little legs. Of a small plumped eggplant she made a water buffalo, with horns and legs of hemp stem, and twisting some half-dried somen into harness for both little animals. She placed them in the shrine. I made several horses and buffaloes too. While we were working, Jia came in with some small lotus leaves, the edge of which were beginning to dry and turn up like little curved dishes, and a few very small yellow and red balls, a new kind of fruit, which I now know were tomatoes. I hate tomatoes. After Ishi had filled the lotus leaf dishes with vegetables and every kind of fruit except the furry peach, Honorable Grandmother looped the somen across the top of the shrine in a series of graceful festoons, hanging on it at intervals small purple eggplants and tiny yellow and red tomatoes. Then Ishi brought the kitchen row of steps, and climbing up hung the white bone lantern high above everything. It was only white paper cube, twisted above with a braid of paper having loose ends, but when it was lighted, the heat made it constantly whirl, and the many ends of paper rising, falling and waving looked like a flock of tiny fluttering birds. It was very beautiful. Oh, that's really nice. I wish this book had visuals. The meaning of the decorations and the queer little vegetable animals had been lost in the mist of past years, but the lotus leaf shape of the dishes was because the lotus is a sacred flower. The Buddha Bible tells the story of Buddha's name of temptation when he was living as a hermit in the Mount of Snow. One day, at the hour of dawn, he was sitting in meditation when he heard a strange, sweet song. As he listened, wonder and joy crept into his heart, for in the notes of the melody was slowly unfolding the plan of salvation. Suddenly it ceased. In vain he waited. All was silence. Hurrying to the edge of the precipice, he peered into the midst of the valley, and there saw a horrible demon who turned a taunting face towards the disappointed and anxious prophet. Earnestly the Buddha begged for the remainder of the song, but the demon said that he could sing no more until his hunger was satisfied with human flesh, and his thirst with human blood. Then would he sing the mystic plan until the knowledge of salvation had reached all humankind. The The Buddha's dearest vision that he himself should bring the message to the world faded into nothingness, and eagerly he cried, "Satisfy thy hunger with my flesh, and quench the thirst with my blood, but continue thy song until every soul is saved." And casting off his robe, he sprang from the rock. A sudden gleam of sunshine lightened the valley and touched the waters of the pool where was floating a lotus with spreading leaves and one unopened bud. As the holy prophet fell through the air, the bud burst suddenly into bloom, and on its snowy petals softly sank the one who was to give to more than 1/3 of the world a faith far better than any they had known. The rage center of the lotus even now is called utena, which means seat, and lotus blossoms, either natural or artificial, are always before every Buddha shrine. Just before sunset, we were all ready, for twilight was the hour of welcome. O Shodai-sama was always spoken of a vague, impersonal figure who came riding on snow-white steed from the land of darkness, the shores of unknown, and the place of the dead. Like all children, I had always looked forward with pleasure to the visit of the ancestors, but after father's death, I felt a deep personal interest, and my heart was beating with excitement, and the family met at the shrine. Each one, even the servants, wore a new dress, simple and inexpensive, but new. As twilight deepened, the shrine lantern was lightened, the shoji pushed back, and the entrance doors opened, thus leaving a free path from the outside road all the way to the shrine. Then we started walking 2 by 2 through the open doors, across the hall, down the step in the shoe-off place, and along the stone walk to the big entrance gates, which were opened wide. In the center of the gateway, Gia had crisscrossed a little pile of hemp stems, just 13, around a tiny heap of fluffy dried grass. When we reached this, we parted. Gia and Yoshida going on one side of the path, and on the other, Honorable Grandmother, Mother, myself, and Ishi, Keen, and Toshi. Then, all respectfully stooping, we bowed our heads and waited. Brother was in Tokyo, so Honorable Grandmother, with Ishi's help, struck the fire purity with flint and steel, and the dropping sparkles lightened the hemp stems into a blaze of welcome. Oh yeah, I forgot. In the previous reading, Etsuko's brother came back to take charge of the household since their father had passed, and each household needs a male leader, I suppose. All the town was silent and dusky except for hundreds of tiny fires, for one was blazing at every gateway. As I bowed, my longing heart seemed to pull my father to me. Through the distance I could hear the sound of soft galloping feet, and I knew the snow-white steed was nearing. The moment's blaze of the hemp stem fire was dying. A faint breath of warm August was struck my neck, and peace crept into my heart. Slowly we rose and with bowed heads walked back. On the outside edges of the path, 2 by 2, but wide apart, leaving the sacred space of the walk between. When we reached the shrine, Mother struck the gong, and we all bowed with the dignified cheerfulness of our usual greetings to a welcome guest. We seemed so few since even the year before, and how cordially our hearts welcomed the presence which we knew would bring into our home cheerful companionship for the happy and helpful comfort for the sorrowful. The next 2 days, the town was full of lanterns. Everybody carried one. Every house was decorated with them. Every street was lined with them. And at the night, the cemeteries were filled with glowworm lights. For every grave had above it a tiny white lantern swinging from an arc made from stems of pampas grass. It was a happy time for all Japan, and the one day in the year when no life was taken of fish, fowl, or even insect. Oh. The fishermen idly wandered about arrayed in holiday garments. The chicken cackled and crowded in the bamboo cages, and the little crickets, which children love to keep in tiny cages, sang their shrill song in the trees without the approach of a single sticky-topped pole. And the charity extended loving arms to the farthest limit. No priest passed with an empty begging bowl. Pampas woven baskets of food were hidden beneath lotus leaves on the graves, waiting for the poor to carry away when the bond lights had turned out. And even the sinners in hell, in their hearts longed for salvation, were given another chance during the merciful days of Bon. Our home was filled with an atmosphere of pleasant thoughts, unselfish acts, and happy laughter, for we felt that our kind guests enjoyed our simple pleasures of new clothes, company courtesies, and our daily feast, with them of the shrine food consisting of fruits, vegetables, and rice dumplings. Honorable grandmother's face grew more peaceful with each hour. Mothers beamed with calm content. The servants were chattering and smiling all the time, and my heart was full of quiet joy. In the shadows before sunrise of the fourth day, Gia went for lotus blossoms, and Mother placed fresh food before the shrine. When the brightening air outside began to quarrel with the soft white lantern inside, we gathered for the farewell. The past days had been happy ones, and I think we all felt sad when, after the last deep bows, Mother rose and lifted the pampas mat from before the shrine. She doubled and flattened it, then tied the ends with grass, thus forming a rude little canoe, and fixed a hemp stem arc in the center. The lotus leaf dishes and food were placed within, and some balls of rice and uncooked dough added as Oshorai-sama's gift to the birds. Then the little vegetable animals and all the decorations of the shrine were put in. The white fluttering lantern was swung from the ark, and with Gia carrying a little canoe, Mother and I, followed by Ishi and Toshi, went to the river. Morning was just dawning, but the streets were full of people, and the air crowded with circling birds, who seemed to know that a treat was before them. Free food! When we reached the bank, all except Gia took their places in the bridge and watched him make his way down the slippery steps cut in the bank and join the throng below. Each person was holding a little canoe with its burden of food and tiny swinging lanterns. Look, whispered Ishi, as Gia lifted his hand to strike the flint and steel to light our little lanterns. Our honorable ancestors will embark on the first tide warmed by the sunrise. The silence was unbroken except for the loud cries of the birds. Then a sudden ray of sunlight shot across a distant mountain, and hundreds of figures stooped and launched the little canoes. All stood watching as they whirled and drifted along the midst of the storm of darting birds screaming their thanks. One, upset. My Oshorai-sama has stepped off and is now in the unknown land, said an old lady, waiting no longer, she climbed the bank and contentedly made her way home. As daylight brightened, we could see the little boats far in the distance, raising and falling, the tiny white lanterns swinging back and forth. We waited until the sun broke into brilliance. Then, as the light came racing down on the mountainside, a soft, deep murmur rose from the bowing figures all along the shores. Farewell, Oshorai-sama, we all gently called. Come again next year. We will be waiting to welcome you. The crowd scattered, and with satisfied faces made their way homeward. Mother and I walked happily along, with Ishi and Toshi and Gia chatting pleasantly behind us. The anxious look that Mother's face had lost during the last few days did not come back, and I felt that Father had really been with us, bringing comfort and help to us all. And now he had gone, leaving behind him not loneliness, but peace. That afternoon, as Ishi was putting away my hair ornament, she pointed to the shield of polished silver set in the midst of the flowers. A crest was carved deeply in it, and the cut edges sparkled like jewels. "It is not the Inagaki crest," I said. "No, it is the birth crest of Honorable Yido grandmother," she said, closing the little box and putting it away. "It is very wonderful work. Everything Honorable Yido grandmother has ever given you is especially beautiful and rare." "Honorable Yido grandmother never sends a gift to my father or to my mother," I said. "No, to no one but you," Ishi replied. "She always remembers you on the festivals to welcome and honor the ancestors of the Inagaki." I remember long afterward that a faint wonder passed through my mind at the time that I should be the one member of the family who ever received a gift from Honorable Yido grandmother. But it lasted only a moment. A Japanese child rarely asked what was not told. And there were so many taken for granted things in Japanese life, anyway, that I gave the matter no further thought. Not until I was grown did I learn that Honorable Yido grandmother was my father's own mother, and that my dear Honorable grandmother, to whom I owed so much, was in reality my great-grandmother. Oh ho, okay. When my grandfather died suddenly, leaving father at the age of 7 as his heir, Honorable grandmother became the mistress of her dead son's home and the mother of his child. That the young widow, father's mother, did not remain in her own home was one of the tragedies of our family system, which, wise as it was when made, has resulted in many wrongs, as must always be the case when the world moves too swiftly and customs slowly lag behind. The restoration of 1868 was not a sudden event. There had been political agitations for years, in which the world of Japan was divided into two factions. Those who believed that the imperial power should include both sacred and secular duties, and those who believed the shogun, as military ruler, should take all national burdens from the shoulders of the sacred emperor. My grandmother believed in the restoration of imperial power, but his wife's father, being a hatamoto, bodyguard of the shogun, was of course a strong advocate of the opposing party. Personally, the two men were friends, but each was strongly loyal to his own principles and his overlord. Grandfather's death took place very suddenly when he was in Tokyo, then called Edo, was officially duty. It is said that he was taken violently and mysteriously ill just after being elaborately entertained at the mansion of his father-in-law. At the feast were present a number of ardent politicians. That my grandfather understood the political significance of the gathering was shown, when, after his death, it was discovered that he had gone to the feast wearing beneath his usual ceremonial dress his white death robe. In those days, when the heart of Japan was beating violently and she was pushing hard against the set, but questioned control of ages such as an event was not unusual, nor was my grandfather's quiet acceptance of his fate so rare. It was only samurai loyalty to a cause and samurai bravery in accepting defeat. Standards differ in different countries, but everywhere we are expected to be loyal and to be brave. But the tragedy of it came to the girl wife, my grandmother, who was little more than 20 years old, and when she became a widow. Under ordinary circumstances, she would have been the honored widow mother of the 7-year-old heir, my father. But because of the well-understanding thought, outwardly ignored situation, there was but one thing for this proud, deeply humiliated woman to do, whether she was the sacrifice of her father's ambition or of his loyalty. I do not know, but she humbly abdicated from her husband's family and changing her name Inagaki to the death name. returned to her former home. According to the ideas of that time, this was the most dishonored position that any samurai woman could hold. It was scorned as would be that of a soldier who goes bravely to the battlefield and cowardly returns home before fighting has begun. What a stark contrast. For a few years, the young widow lived a quiet life in her father's home, devoting her time to classic literature and cultural attainments. Then she was offered an important position as a lady official in the mansion of the daimon of Satsuma. Sorry, I need a cough. It's like something stuck in the back of my throat. I forgot my water. This was just the time when Satsuma was playing a conspicuous part in history. It was this daimyot which single-handedly challenged the entire British Eastern Squadron after the young samurai of the clan had killed Mr. Richardson, a British merchant who boldly crossed the ceremonial procession of their overlord. Satsuma was the most powerful daimyo in Japan, and his home, like all high-ranked houses during feudal days, was divided into two distinct departments, the state and the home. The government of the home department was entirely under lady officials, and in large mansions with many retainers, these lady officers had to be as efficient as the officials of the state department. Among these able retainers, my grandmother occupied an honored place. Very soon, her special gifts were recognized, and she was chosen as governess to the little girl princess, a position which she held until her charge became a bride-elect and required teachers for wifehood training. Then my grandmother, generously pensioned for life, was honorably released. This farewell being poetically worded, the regretted disappearance of the full moon behind folds of cloud, leaving in her wake soft, wide-spreading shafts of light, to remain with us, as always, as gentle and lasting memories. Excuse me. I never saw Honorable Yido grandmother with my human eyes, but I can see her always when I look into my heart. Living in the largest daimyo mansion in Japan, surrounded by wealth and luxury, in the midst of daily expressed appreciation of her culture and her natural gifts, and with the respect and affection of her much-loved young princess always with her, yet her thought turned to the little granddaughter whom she never saw. It was not altogether the call of love, though I like to think that there was also. She was groping over a new and puzzling path, striving to find a way to keep faithful to her wifely vow. Her life work, through no fault or neglect of her own, had been taken from her, but unflinchingly, as is the samurai way, she held her broken duty to her heart, and as long as she lived, sent each year one of her closest personal possessions to the little granddaughter, who was said to resemble her, even to her curly hair, to be worn in the welcome greeting to the spirits of the Inagaki family, to whom she could no longer bow, but to whom her duty was due. Her helplessness was tragedy, her efforts were pathos, but her best and to the last she was true. Standards of duty differ on the opposite sides of the world, but Japanese people never flinched at its call. Many a boy and girl not yet in their teens, many a man and woman at the time of brightest promise, many of the age have gone alone to distant province, and among strangers have become of them body, brain, and spirit. But even among beautiful surroundings, if duty lies behind, undone, nothing, while life lasts, can break the heart pull, the brain planning, the soul prayer to reach, even partially, the lost goal. Such is the deep hidden soul of Japan. Oh. When the young princess bade farewell to my grandmother, she presented her, as the highest token of grateful and affectionate appreciation, something which she herself had worn, a dress bearing her own crest. Many years afterward, for the Bon festivals when I was 10 years old, my grandmother sent this choice treasure to me. I will remember that day. Ishi had taken me to my room to dress for the evening of welcome. Hanging over one of the large lacquer frames on which we spread our clothing to the air, or to wait until we were ready, was a beautiful summer dress of pale blue linen decorated with an exquisite design of the 7 grasses of autumn. It seemed to me the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen in my life. "Oh, Ishi," I cried. "Is this beautiful dress for me?" "Yes, Etsubo-sama. Honorable Yudo grandmother has sent it to you for the festival." It was too large for me, and Toshi had to take deep tucks at the shoulders and waist. When I dressed, I went to show myself to honorable grandmother and mother, then I went to father's room. "I have come," I announced, kneeling outside the closed door, ready to open it. "Enter," came the response from within. I pushed back the shoji. Father was reading. He looked up with a smile. Then what was my surprise to see him, after one glance at me, quickly slipped from his cushion and with a slow dignity dramatically announced, "Enter the Princess of Satsuma." Then he made a deep bow. Of course, my own little head was down to the floor in an instant, and though when I lifted it, he was laughing, still I felt, in some subtle way, that there was something deeper beneath his smile than just his humorous obeisance to the crest of the superior clan, a combined pride and grief, and perhaps pain also, like the cruel ache in the heart of a strong man whose sword arm is helpless. End of chapter 9. I never knew there was so much in preparation for like the Bone Festival. I'm gonna go grab some water. Maybe that will help wake me up a bit so I don't sound too monotone. I will be right back. Okay, you guys are in for a treat. So I thought I'd eat something to help me wake up a bit, and I don't have anything in the fridge except for a bunch of yogurt. And I have the Chobani flip yogurts, and this is the s'mores one. So I'm gonna just eat that real quick so I can try to wake up a bit. I have more life in my voice. Gonna fill that. And then we're going to mix the yogurt around a little bit. I'm so excited for pancakes later. And then we flip it so we can put the s'mores crumbs and chocolate into the chocolate chips into the yogurt. And I also have my water with me today. Woo! Nice cold water. Yeah, and since my sleep cycle has been like wonky the past week, I've been having like very, very weird dreams. A few of them explicit, so I can't share. I'm trying to eat more yogurt to help keep my my gut clean. So I bought like a big pack from Costco. Yeah. It's been so gloomy the past few days. It's been raining a lot. Um. So good. Okay. Yeah, I need to do a proper grocery shopping this weekend. I literally had nothing in my fridge all week since coming back from Japan. And with my sleep cycle being off and with the newly added stress at work, I haven't been eating or sleeping very well this week. At least I'm drinking my my water every day. At least there's that. All right. So I feel a little bit more awake, but my eyes is just still super tired. Let me try just rubbing them a bit. Alrighty. Hopefully that helped. Well, excuse me. Alright. So we are now gonna start chapter 10. Oops. Shouldn't have done that. I creased the book too hard and now there's like a little line in the spine. Darn. Alright, chapter 10. The Day of the Bird. Oh. Alright, let's read what it's all about. It says, Brother had been at home a year when the letters from his friend in America began coming more frequently. After each one, grandmother, brother, and mother would have long talks, and not all of them were happy ones. In a vague way, I sometimes thought these discussions had something to do with me. One day was a little troubled. On a long conference ended my brother's abruptly coming out from the room with only a short bow that was almost rude. Or a short bow that was almost rude. He started swiftly towards the door, then turning, came back and stood by my side, looking steadily at me for a moment, for he went on without saying a word. Several weeks later, a thick, heavy letter came, one with many stamps, and after another talk in grandmother's room, brother sent Gia out with the long lacquer box tied with a cord, which I knew held a routing letter for all the relatives. Gia would wait at each place for it to be read before carrying it on to the next place. So he's the messenger? That afternoon, I noticed mother was very thoughtful and quiet, and grandmother sat by her firebox, silent and stern, with her long, slender pipe in her hand. The tiny bowl held only 3 puffs, and after refilling it twice, she always put it away. But she seemed to have forgotten that day and sat holding it a long time. The next day, there was a meeting of the family council. Oh man, what's going on? What's going on? It has always been a Japanese custom to decide important family problems by calling an assembly of the older relatives. There had been family councils ever since I could remember, but being the youngest of the family, and a girl, I was not concerned in them. And I never gave more than a passing thought as to whether this time it would mean the selling of another place of land or one of our roll pictures. We have been selling things all my life. Sister and I were so accustomed to seeing the second-hand man go into the big plaster storehouse with old Gia that we made a practice of playing a guessing game as to whether he would come out with a small package in his hand or a big bundle on his shoulders. Mother used to look troubled when a group of men came to look at things, but father would laugh and say, useless beauty had a place in the old life. but the new asks only for ugly usefulness. But one thing father never laughed about. Whenever negotiations were pending in regard to land, he was always watchful. The outside limits of our once large estate had gradually been withdrawn within the wall, and year by year they were closing in nearer to the house. But father would never part with any portion of the garden overlooked by grandmother's room. After his death... Hello, Palm Star! You're still sleeping. This is all a dream. No, I'm awake. Before starting this chapter, I ate a yogurt, and that helped me wake up a lot. And thanks for making it. I hope work went well and you're not too tired being here. Let's see, where am I? Oh, here it is. After his death, brother was equally considerate, so as long as she lived, grandmother could gaze out upon the garden, the stream, and the little slope of azaleas against the background of feathery bamboo, just as she had done for years. Maybe my reading could soothe you back to sleep. The family council was the largest that had been held since father's death. 2 gray-haired uncles were there with the aunts, besides 2 other aunts, and a young uncle who had come all the way from Tokyo on purpose for this meeting. They had been in the room a long time, and I was busy writing at my desk when I heard a soft, "Allow me to speak," behind me, and there was Toshi at the door, looking rather excited. If I don't answer back, you know what happened, but I'm not tired yet. Yeah, that's okay. I'm here to help soothe you to sleep. "Little mistress," she said with an unusually deep bow, "your honorable grandmother asked you to go to the room where the guests are." I entered the big room. Brother was sitting by the tokonoma, and next to him were 2 gray-haired uncles and a young uncle from Tokyo. Opposites sat honorable grandmother, the 4 aunts, and mother. Tea had been served, and all had cups for them or in their hands. As I pushed back the door, they looked up and gazed at me as if they had never seen me before. I was a little startled, but of course I made a low, ceremonious bow. Mother motioned to me and slipped over beside her on the mat. "Etsuko," mother said very gently, "the gods have been kind to you, and your destiny as a bride had been decided. Your honorable brother and your venerable kindred had given much thought to your future. It is proper that you should express your gratitude to the honorable all." Oh, so she's getting married now. I made a long, low bow, touching my forehead to the floor. Then I went out and returned to my desk and my writing. I had no thought of asking, "Who is it?" I did not think of my engagement as a personal matter at all. It was a family affair. Like every Japanese girl, I had known from babyhood that sometime, as a matter of course, I should marry. But that was far away, necessity to be considered when the time came. I did not look forward to it. I did not dread it. I did not think of it at all. The fact that I was not quite 13 had nothing to do with it. That was the attitude of all girls. She's 13. Well, I guess that makes sense, because my mom got married when she was 14. The formal ceremony of the betrothal took place some months later. It was not an elaborate affair, like a wedding, but very important. For in old-fashioned families, the betrothal was considered as sacred as the marriage itself, and indeed it could not be nearly so easily broken as might be the marriage tie. There was an air of quiet excitement in the whole house that day. The servants, who always felt a personal interest in everything that happened in the family, had hung weather dolls of folded paper on the nantan bush near the porch to ensure sunshine, and were jubilant over the result. And even Mother, who always seemed more calm when she was excited, went around giving unnecessary directions to various maids. "Be careful," in the pondering Etsuko-sama's face. I heard her say to Ishi, "Get the paint smooth." And when the hairdresser arrived, Mother made a second trip to the room to give a special order that Etsuko-sama's hair must be pulled straight. Because remember, she has curly hair. As soon as I was dressed, I went to grandmother's room for morning greetings. Her kindly smile was more gentle than usual, and we had a pleasant talk before breakfast was announced. As we were leaving the room, she reminded me that it was the day of the bird. I guess that's what it means. Day of the bird is the day of her betrothal. "Yes, I know," I said. "A betrothal ceremony always takes place on the day of the bird, honorable grandmother. Why is that?" "Be not ambitious to be vain," she said, and smiling and resting her arm on my shoulders as we walked down the porch. "The day was chosen by your relatives with the kind wish that good fortune will bless your life with silks and brocades as plentiful as are the feathers of the birds." Matsuo's aged uncle, Mr. Omori, had arrived from Kyoto a few days before and had been entertained at the home of the go-between. The ceremony had to take place in the waxing rather than the waning of the day, so about the middle of the forenoon. When I went into the best room, I found the others already assembled. Matsuo's uncle was seated on a cushion near the tokonoma. He sat very straight and had a pleasant face. I liked him. Grandmother, brother, mother, and the two go-betweens were there, and I sat beside Mother. The woman go-between brought to me a small white table with a square of crepe over it, on which was a Matsuo's crest. It was the engagement gift from the family, and I was looking for the first time upon the crest, and I should have to wear it all my life. But I did not seriously realize it. Another tray held other gifts, the most important of which was a pair of folding fans, signifying a wish for constantly widening happiness. Oh, is that what fans signify? Then Toshi brought into the room 2 trays and set them before Mr. Omori. It was my family's gift to Matsuo. Of course, I happened to know exactly what to do, so I lifted the square of crepe from my table, displaying a roll of magnificent brocade for a sash. On Mr. Omori's table were the essential pair of fans and a white pleated silk skirt called hakama. I know the hakama. The regulation dress for a Japanese gentleman. They have been the betrothal gifts from time immemorial. I bowed in most formal thanks, and Mr. Omori did the same. Then the gifts were placed on the tokonoma, and everybody, even grandmother, made a slight bow and murmured, "Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations." Soon after, the maids brought the small tables for our dinner, placing those for the gentlemen on one side of the room and those for the ladies on the other. Then Toshi, with her tray, took her place in the open space at the end of the 2 lines. Each person made a slight bow, and dinner commenced. The conversation was general, and the guests seemed to have a pleasant time. But, of course, I was very quiet and dignified. I bet she had no idea how to act during such situation. I wouldn't at 13. The most interesting part of the day to me came after everyone had gone and Ishi was taking off my dress. She eyed my head very closely. Ma, Itsubo-sama, she said. It was such luck that today was the cold and dry. Your hair has not one bit of a crinkle. I know that feeling. My hair does not react kindly to humidity. It gets all poofy and wavy. I don't like it. Get some water. For once, my unruly hair had not disgraced my family. And giving a sigh of relief, I placed my head carefully upon my little wooden pillow and went contentedly to sleep. After my betrothal, my life was sort of make-believe game. For my education as a wife began that very day. I had already received the unusual training in cooking, sewing, and various household duties, as well as flower arranging, tea serving, and other womanly accomplishments. But now I had to put these things into practice as if I were already in my husband's home. I was expected to select without assistance the proper flowers, the suitable roll picture and tokonoma ornament, and see that the house was always arranged according to certain established rules. Every moment of my life was filled with training and preparation. The object was not explained to me, for this education was taken for granted, part of every betrothal. And it happened in my case that no special explanation was necessary, other than I had to be careful, not in any way to show disrespect to wood sorrel, since Matsuo's crest was conventionalized wood sorrel? Whatever that means. Except that I had to learn to like tuna, which was my favorite dish of Matsuo's, and which I had never cared for. My diet was not affected at all by my betrothal. Sister had a long training, for she had been betrothed 5 years, including the year of postponement on account of father's death. As her expected husband's crest was conventionalized plum, she never, during the 5 years, tasted plum. Even in jelly. It would have been disrespectful. The hardest thing I did that year was to learn how to make a sleeping cushion. I loved to sew and was rather skillful with a needle, but I never made anything by myself. Ishi or Toshi had always helped me, but every Japanese housewife had to know how to make cushions, for they were our chairs and our beds. So mother said that I must make a sleeping cushion entirely alone. This was a difficult thing for anyone to do, and my sleeves were wet with foolish tears when for the 4th time I pulled out the thread and turned the immense cushion inside out in order to refit the corners, which, in spite of persistent efforts, would stay twisted. Oh no! That meant she wasn't sewing straight. Another of my duties was the preparation, on anniversaries and at festival times, of a shadow table for my absent fiancé. On these days, I myself cooked the food which brother told us Matsuo especially liked. His table was placed next to mine, and I arranged for it to be always served before my own. Thus I learned to be watchful for the comfort of my prospective husband. Grandmother and mother always spoke as if Matsuo were present, and I was as careful of my dress and conduct as if he had really been in the room. Thus I grew to respect him and to respect my own position as his wife. Most of the memories of that time are like faint heartthrob phantoms now, but one always stands out clear and strong. That has to do with a birthday. Japanese people do not, as a rule, observe individual birthdays, Instead, it is the custom to celebrate New Year as a birthday for each person of the nation. This gives a double meaning to the day and makes New Year the most joyously celebrated of any festival of the year. But in our house, one special birthday was always honored. That was Matsuo's. That was not on my account. From the time mothers had learned of his kindness to brother, never did a January 8th pass that we did not have an elaborate dinner, the table for Matsuo in the place of the honor as our guest. Mother always kept up his custom, and in later years, when in a far distant land, I have thought with the mist in my eyes of the birthday table in my mother's home in the mountains of Japan. Oh, I didn't know that about the New Year thing. No wonder shrines and temples are always super packed at New Year's in Japan. During these months, Mother and I came closer to each other than we had ever been before. She did not confide in me. That was not Mother's way, but it seemed that an invisible cord of sympathy was drawing our hearts together. I had always greatly admired my mother, but there was a little awe mixed with my admiration. Father had been my comrade and my friend as well as my wise advisor, and my whole heart was filled with tender love for my dear, patient, unselfish Ishi. But Mother was aloft, like the sun, flawless and steady, filling the home with life-giving warmth, yet too far away to be treated familiarly. So I was surprised one day when she came quietly to my room and told me there was something she wanted to speak to me about before she told grandmother. Our house had received word from the go-between that the Matsuo had removed to a city in the eastern part of America. He had gone into business for himself. On this account, he had decided not to return to Japan for several years and asked that I be sent to him there. Ooh. Mother always accepted inevitable circumstances with calm recognition. But this was a very unusual and puzzling situation. For generations, Japanese mothers, believing that the destined home for every girl is settled by the gods, have sent their daughters as brides to distant provinces, so my going to America was not a matter of deep concern. But for a bride to go into a home where there was neither mother-in-law nor an elder sister of wisdom age to train her in the ways of new household was a serious problem. And this was not a case that could be referred to the family council, for I was as much bound to Matsuo as if I were already married, and in his affairs, the Inagaki family had no authority. In this strange situation, Mother turned to me, and for the first time in my life, I was consulted in a family matter. I think I changed from girl to woman in the hour of conversation with my mother. Interesting. We decided that, at least for the present, there was but one problem for us to face. That was how to prepare for an unknown life in a strange land. In this, my relatives couldn't take no part. Of course, all were excited and each one volunteered advice, but the only practical suggestion came from brother. He and I must have an English education. That meant that I should have to be sent to school in Tokyo. All that winter, the household was busy getting me ready for school. The pathos of those preparations I did not realize, nor I think did any of us. Mother spent evening after evening bending her stately head over wonderful embroidery garments, ripping out, stitch by stitch, the exquisite work of hands folded in rest generations ago. Then Ishi would dye the silk and make it into a plain garment suitable for my school life. And many things were sold. Grandmother and mother consented to any sacrifice, though sometimes their faces were sad, but brother seemed to have lost all feelings for the precious old belongings and would part with them without one expression of regret. Treasures are a useless care, he often said. In a poorhouse like ours, there is no need to keep dozens of chests of retainers' armor. They had their place in the past. But the hereafter, the sons of our ancestors must fight on the battlefield of commerce. Business is the key to wealth, and in this new world, wealth is only power. I thought little of it then, but now it aches me to remember the sword hilt ornament of exquisite workmanship in gold and silver and bronze that were sold for almost nothing. And I can see, even now, how the great skills of the dealer in an old iron tipped heavily in the weight of swords that once were the pride of our humblest retainers. One cold evening, I went into grandmother's room and snuggled down beside her cushion, close to the firebox, just as I used to do in the days which were beginning to seem to me far in the past. We had grown somewhat apart that year. I was no longer the little child she could make happy with sweets, could train in politeness and teach useful lessons by means of fairy lore. And I felt that, much as she loved me, the new conditions that my future faced were beyond her old-fashioned comprehension. But I learned that night, while I talked with her, that samurai training will prepare one for any future. As we sat in the quiet room, lightened only by the soft glow of the charcoal fire, she told me how, that every day 60 years before, she as a bride had left her home in a distant province to come to her husband in Nagaoka. Most brides of her rank revisited their homes each year in a long procession of grandeur, but though messengers were sent with inquiries and gifts every New Year and summer festival season, grandmother never, after she entered the marriage palanquin, saw her home or her people again. In those days of slow travel, distance was counted by time rather than miles, and hers was a long trip. She left home on the night of a full moon. Another full moon was in the sky when she was carried through the entrance gate of her husband's home. I was just your age, 14, she said, and sometimes, as the procession passed through strange provinces, climbing over mountains and crossing wide rivers, I wondered many things. It was farther than Kyoto that I came, and at the gateway of each province there were long waits while the officials of the procession exchanged papers and received permission for us to pass. At these times, my nurse always came and remained beside my palanquin, and the spear retainers and 6 shoulders of coolie carriers were with us. So I did not fear, but the world seemed very strange and large to me, and the people I came to live among were very different from my own. The customs were new, even the language had an accent and idioms that seemed peculiar. It was like a foreign land. And so of late, I have thought much of you and the unknown country to which your fate is taking you. Remember, Etsubo. And her voice was strangely tender. Where you live is a small matter. The life of a samurai, man or woman, is just the same. Loyalty to the overlord. Bravery in defense of his honor. In your destined home, remember grandmother's words. Loyalty to your husband. Bravery in defense of his honor. It will bring you peace. I just realized something. Why do you sleep with the needle in your butt? It's to keep my hair in a nice bun. But no, it was the needle was out, but I put it back in before I started streaming to keep it neat. In your sleep? That's dangerous. No. It was off when I'm sleeping. I had to put it back in before I started streaming. It'll poke your eye out. Oh, yeah. That's a possibility. It wouldn't be great to have it in and roll around in the bed, I guess. Could poke my head. Oh no, that's the end of chapter 10, so we'll take a small break before we proceed with the next one. Oh, the next two chapters aren't that long. There's more. No. I try to read 4 chapters each reading stream so we can actually finish this book this year. But we can have conversations in between. I'm educating you for free. So much knowledge in this book. So much culture. I hope you're getting a sense of how tough it is to be raised as a samurai daughter. The book doesn't have a title. Yes, it does. It's called A Daughter of the Samurai. Oh, in the with my book asset here. You know, many books back in the day didn't have the title on the cover. You have to recognize it by the cover artwork. Yeah. You just need to know that it's the book. But yeah, how was work? Get a bookmark. Get your refund. It's a free asset, so it's okay. I'm gonna stretch. Oh, you didn't go to work yesterday? Okay. Oh no, what now? Is it not showing your comments again? Uh-oh. I don't think they like what you're saying. Let's just say it's not the books that are a scam, it's this asset. No. I'd be mad too, like don't don't disrespect the book. You too, I'm a bad boy. I did no such thing. I always tell them, you're a good boy. Oh yeah, I mentioned in the earlier part of stream that I haven't been sleeping well. And last night I didn't go to sleep till like 5 a.m. I It's my sleep mask. It's my sleeping mask. Isn't it cute? Yeah, it's my sleep mask. But yeah, I'm still pretty jet lagged, and I was awake all night. I didn't go to sleep till like 5 a.m. Yeah, yeah, it is. It does look like a rabbit. A sleeping rabbit. Question is it purple or is it blue? Yeah, like yesterday after we played Sakuna, it was like what? Around 6 when I ended. And then I had dinner, and then I took a quote unquote nap from like 10 to midnight, and I'm like, crap, I shouldn't have taken a nap. And then I woke up and I couldn't fall asleep until like 5 in the morning. I specifically chose this sleep mask because I'm like, is it purple? Is it blue? Get more sleep. It might help you grow a few inches. I think it's too late for me. I'm done growing. That's why I wear shoes with like a 2-inch sole at the bottom of it. It helps me feel taller. But yeah, I went to sleep at 5 a.m. and then I woke up at 8:30 to do this stream. It's never too late, but you don't want to grow more. I'm sure it's too late for me now. The only thing I can do now is cheat and add more height, but via my shoes. Crocs that help you grow. That's a lie. Don't lie to me like that. Crocs are so flat. They're definitely not flat. They look flat to me. Oh yeah, and then don't be so mean to Crocs. Hey. So I know a lot of people who wear Crocs. And I'm not mean to the Crocs. I just won't wear the Crocs. What did Crocs do to you? They're not very aesthetically pleasing. And like, I don't trust the material. The material seems like it could break easily. You don't like fashion. I guess I don't like Croc fashion. Or fashion. I don't like Croc fashion. I don't know about that. I don't know. I just don't trust Crocs. They're sussy. Oh, and I mentioned earlier that because I knew I'd be tired today, I made a reservation at Original Pancake House. So I'm gonna go eat some pancakes after this. Take that back. You're sus. Never. Crocs are sussy. I'm not sussy. Save me pancakes. Yeah, I'll take pictures and I'll post it on Twitter. Oh, original pancake house? I wouldn't say it's fancy, but it's very well managed. Yeah. They're really I wouldn't say popular, but they have a lot of people eating there every day. So it's very well managed, so it doesn't make wait times long. You can reserve online. Yeah, the original pancake house, it's very packed every day because they open at like 6:30 until 3. And a lot of people go there. So if you don't reserve ahead of time, you have to wait until there's an opening. Nope, this is original pancake house is like, how would I compare it? It's nothing like IHOP. Yeah, they make pancakes, but the service is top notch. Yeah. The pancakes are super good, very buttery and fluffy. I make my own pancakes. I totally did not undercook my pancakes before, which discourages me to continue to make my pancakes. Not at all. Not at all. Maybe it's because I have an electric stove or something. I can never get the middle part to be well cooked. So I started using a skillet. And that seems to work better. Yeah. I started using a skillet. It doesn't matter what stove or oven. Maybe it's just my skills. but I use those what do you call them? Those pre-packed uh pancake flour thingies, pancake flour boxes, where all you have to do is add eggs and water. How can I be using the wrong ingredients if I use that? Do you make your pancakes from scratch? Oh yes, I do love waffles too. I have a waffle maker too. Have I used it? No. But I do love waffles. I like the crispiness of waffles. I used it once, but not to like I use I bought it and I was like, I'm gonna use this every day, but I just it just keeps I just keep forgetting about it. But I used it once because I bought these mochi cakes, and I used that on the waffle maker to make a mochi waffle. And that was the only time I used it. Oh, it's not collecting dust. It's safely stored in its package, so no dust can get to it. How to explain it? So Japan makes these like rectangular shaped mochi cakes. No, it's real. These mochi cakes, I forgot what they're called, but they're like preserved mochis, and they're shaped in like a rectangular block, and you can microwave them or like cook them over a pan to soften them, and then you can eat it, and then they're like mochi cakes. And you can use a block, you place it in the waffle maker, you close it, and it'll make a mochi waffle. And that was the only time I used it, the waffle maker, was to make a mochi waffle. And it was so good. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Katie mochi. Oh, they're called kitty mochi. Let's see. Load. Is it good? I'd say it's really good. It's really commonly eaten during the New Year. So at the Oriental stores, they sell these every New Year. Can I put butter and maple syrup on it? You could, if that's what you want. Usually they're eaten with like soy sauce or seaweed or red bean paste. Oh my god, what's happening? Here it is. Yeah, this is kitty mochi. So it comes in like this prepackaged rectangular block thingy. And yeah, like that. So it's like preserved mochi kind of. And you can yeah, it's really hard. So you have to like microwave it or boil it or fry it over a pan on the stove, so it softens it, and then you can eat it with dipping it in soy sauce, or wrap seaweed around it, or put whatever toppings you want on top to eat it. Because I don't know, it's just what the Japanese recommend. It's really good. I've had it with soy sauce and it's really good. I guess if hot sauce is what you want, you could. But I don't like spicy. But yeah, when I was making my mochi waffle, I just placed one of this blocks into the waffle maker, and then it like spreads out when it's warmed up, and then once you open it, you get a mochi waffle, and it's like you can stretch it apart, and it's like super stretchy and gooey, and it's so good. So that was the one and only time I used my waffle maker. I placed one of these babies in there. Teriyaki sauce? I guess if it suits your fancy, because this is basically like rice, you know? Like, you could eat it with whatever you usually eat with rice. No, it's not my hand. I googled it, so it's a Google image. All right. But yeah, that was the only time I used my waffle maker. I used it to make a mochi waffle. So good. Is it though? They look pretty normal to me. Hot sauce on your waffles, like the batter waffles or the mochi waffles? Oh my goodness, hot sauce on butter waffles? That's like sacrilegious, or what do you call it? Sacrilege? Yeah, that's sacrilegious. Merca? Merca waffles? This is Merca. Or I'll put soy sauce. I'm daring right now. Wait, are you talking about like butter waffles? You're gonna put soy sauce on your butter waffles, bro? Don't do that. Please stick with honey or syrup. Don't commit waffle crimes, okay? Yeah, don't commit waffle crimes, please. If you put soy sauce on your waffles, I'm gonna put pineapple on my pizza. I said it's normal for the mochi, kitty mochi, not waffles. Yeah, if you do that to waffles, I'm gonna put pineapple on my pizza. But waffles are waffles. But mochi waffles and butter waffles are different. If you don't put hot sauce on waffles, I won't put pineapple on pizzas. Let's keep it peaceful here. Civilized. Good, good, good. See, you're a good boy. I'm telling YouTube right now that you're a good boy. Alright, let's continue this reading so I can get my pancakes at noon. Pancakes at noon. I'm always civil. On the other hand, I'm not sure. Hey, 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 hey. We're not pointing fingers here. I'm say so, remember? Alright, chapter 11. My first journey. So it seems like Miss Etiko is gonna come to America. America. Land of America. Okay, you may proceed. Thank you, thank you. Okay. That was one of the long Nagaoka winters. For 5 months, we saw only snow. 5 months! Oh my god! In the early spring, our relatives in Tokyo had written that arrangements had been made for my school. From that time, I had been waiting impatiently for the mountain roads to become safe from avalanches. For just as soon as we could travel, brother was to take me to the capital. At last, the dikes were dry, and that was where the snow always melted first, and we had a gathering green picnic as a farewell to my companions in Nagaoka. One sunny morning, a group of us, with purple scarves on our heads and kimonos tucked up over our bright skirts, dotted the dike slopes, each carrying a small basket with a bamboo knife and filling the air with laughter and merry calls as we hurried up and down the banks, trying to see how many different kinds of green each could find. Often in later years, I recall the happy day as my last gay time at home as a girl. Finally, the mail carriers reported that the overhanging snow cliffs had all fallen and the slopes were clear. Soon after came the day of our departure. With the heart half of elation, half of regret, I bade goodbye to honorable grandmother and mother, and with misty eyes was carefully tucked into my jinrikisha by Ishi. Then, between lines of bowing friends, our 2 jinrikishas and baggage-laden horse, led by a coolie, started on 8 days' journey to Tokyo. Most of the way, we traveled in jinrikishas, changing them at certain towns, but occasionally we had to go on horseback. My saddle was a high box seat, so brother and the coolie rigged up a double basket held by bands across the horse's back. I sat in one part, and baggage filled the other. As we went around the steep, curvy road on the mountainside, I could lean over and look far, far down the fisher villages on the coast. But it was more interesting, as we got farther along, to look across the deep valley to the sloping hillsides with their terrace of rice fields, odd-shaped patches fitted in like the silk pieces of a Buddhist priest robe. In every little village of thatched roofs huts was a shrine set high in the midst of a few trees, and, half hidden in the hollow beside a stream, was whirling the great narrow wheel of a rice mill. The air was so clear that I could plainly see the awkward lunge of a water buffalo as he dragged a wooden plow along the furrows of one of the rice patches, and I could even distinguish a scarlet flower stuck between the folds of the towel knotted about the head of a coolie behind. In those days, no one ever wore a living flower, except to carry it to the dead, so I knew he was taking it home for a house shrine. I wondered what kind of home he had. I think it was our 3rd day when I noticed that we were leaving the snow country. No longer did the towns have their sidewalks roofed, and those thatches bore no rows of avalanche stones. The houses looked bare and odd, like a married woman's face with newly shaved eyebrows. But we were not entirely beyond the sight of snow, for as we skirted Myoko Mountain, we saw a good many drifts and patches. The Jinrikisha man said no snow lasted there until July. That is crazy. Snow in July? Get out of here. From the top, said brother, you can see Fujiyama. Mount Fuji! My heart thrilled, and I foolishly turned my head, feeling for a moment that I was really near the sacred mountain which my eyes had never expected to behold. And then, with a deeper, warmer thrill, I heard the conclusion of his sentence. And then, if you turn and look at the opposite direction, you can see the plains of Echigo. Echigo, yeah. We are very far from home, I replied in a small voice. Brother gave a quick look at my grave face, then he laughed. Also, if you look just beyond, you can see the Isle of Sado. If Matsuo should not come up to expectations, here's some advice for you. And his merry voice broke into an old song. Nikui toko ni kisetai shima wa royagoshi ni sado ga shima. Whatever that means. I was shocked that brother could sing a common servant song, and doubly shocked that he could joke so lightly about serious things, so my face was still grave as we rolled along in our jinrikisha. The Isle of Sado used to be a place of exile for criminals, and was considered by common people as the end of the world. This joking song, which is popular among peasant girls, is literally a threat to the present to dislike suitor. Not the pleated garment, which is usual gift of the bride to the groom, but instead a convict's garb, meaning, I pray the gods will send the unwelcome one across the raging seas to the end of the world. I'm hoping you translate that. I'm not that good. I'm not that good. Something about Sado, because it's like very far up north of Japan, so it's like snowing most of the year, and exile people are usually exiled there for punishment. Something along those lines. I think that's what it's saying. We spent our 5th night at Nagano in the temple of Zenkoji, where lived the royal nun beneath whose high-lifted razor I had walked, years before, in procession of gaily clad little girls for the Buddhist ceremony of consecration? Yeah. The next morning, soon after we started, brother halted and allowed my jinrikisha to pull up to his side. Etsubo, he asked, when did they give up making a priestess of you? Why, I don't know, I said, surprised. He gave a little scornful laugh and rode on to his place ahead, leaving me silent and thoughtful. I had spoken the truth when I said I did not know. I had always accepted my education with no thought of results. But brother's laugh had startled me, and rolling along the mountain road, I did a good deal of thinking. At last I believed that I understood. I know my father had never approved, although he acquiesced in honorable grandmother's wish that I should be educated for a priestess. And when, after my brother's sad departure, he had quietly substituted studies, which would be a benefit should I ever hold the position of his heir. I think honorable grandmother, aching with sympathy for her proud, disappointed son, laid aside her cherished hope, and the plan was silently abandoned. Wah wah. In the province of Shinano, an hour or so from Nagano, my jinrikisha man pointed across the river to a small wooded mountain. Obatsuyama it is, he said. How my mind went back to Ishi and her mother love story, which tells of a time long, long ago where there lived at the foot of this mountain a poor farmer and his aged, widowed mother. They owned a bit of land which supplied them with food, and their humble lives were peaceful and happy. At the time, Shinano was governed by a despotic ruler who thought, though a brave warrior, had a great and cowardly shrinking from anything suggestive of fading health and strength. This caused him to send out a cruel proclamation. The entire province was given strict orders immediately to put to death all aged people. What the heck? You can't just kill off all the elders like that. Those were barbarous days, and the custom of abandoning old people to die was not uncommon. So sad. However, it is not a law, and many of the helpless old lived as long as nature allowed in comfortable and welcome homes. The poor farmer loved his aged mother with tender reverence, and the order filled his heart with sorrow. But no one ever thought a second time about obeying the mandate of daimyo. So with many deep and hopeless sighs, the youth prepared for what at the time was considered the kindest mode of death. Just at sundown, when his day's work was ended, he took a quantity of the unwhitened rice, which is the principal food of the poor, cooked and dried it, and tying it in a square of cloth, he swung the bundle around his neck with the gourd filled with cool, sweet water. Then he filled his helpless old mother to his back and started on his painful journey up the mountain. The road was long and steep. He plodded steadily on. The shadows grew deeper and deeper until the moon, round and clear, rose above the mountain top and peered pityingly through the branches upon the youth toiling onward. His head bent with weariness and his heart heavy with sorrow. The narrow road was crossed and recrossed by many paths made by hunters and woodcutters. In some places they mingled in a confused puzzle, but he gave real heed. One path or another, it mattered not. On he went, climbing blindly upward, ever upward, towards the high, bare summit of what is now known as Obatsuyama, the mountain of abandoning of the aged. The eyes of the old mother were not so dim, but that they noted the reckless hastening from one path to another, and her loving heart grew anxious. Her son did not know the mountain's many paths, and his return might be one of danger. So she stretched forth her hand, and snapping the twigs from the bushes as they passed, she quietly dropped a handful every few steps of the way. So as they climbed, the narrow path behind them was dotted as of frequent intervals with tiny piles of twigs. So she was leaving breadcrumbs, sort of. At last the summit was reached. Weary and heartsick, the youth gently released his burden and silently prepared a place of comfort as his last duty to the loved one. Gathering fallen pine needles, he made a soft cushion and tenderly lifted his old mother thereon. He wrapped her padded coat more closely about the stooping shoulders, and with tearful eyes and an aching heart, said farewell. Oh, you just leave your mother there. The trembling mother voice was full of unselfish love as she gave her last injunction. Let not thine eyes be blind, my son. The mountain road is full of danger. Look carefully and follow the path which holds the piles of twigs. They will guide thee to the familiar way farther down. Oh, so she left those breadcrumbs for him so he can go back down. The son's surprised eyes looked back over the path, then at the poor old shriveled hands, all scratched and soiled by their work of love. His heart smote him, and bowing the ground, he cried aloud, "O honorable mother, thy kindness thrusts my heart. I will not leave thee. Together we will follow the path of twigs, and together we will die." Oh no! So he's gonna die with his mother. Oh, so sad. So sad. Yes. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, so the mother had left twigs trails for her son to find his way back down the mountain. The son's surprised eyes looked back over the path, then at the poor old shriveled hands, all scratched and soiled by their work of love. His heart smote him, and bowing to the ground, he cried out loud, "O honorable mother, thy kindness thrusts my heart. I will not leave thee. Together we will follow the path of twigs, and together we will die." Once more he shouldered his burden, how light it seemed now, and hastened down the path, through the shadows and the moonlight, to the little hut in the valley. Beneath the kitchen floor was a walled closet for food, which was covered over and hidden from view. There the son hid his mother. What? Oh, supplying her with everything needful and continually watching and fearing. Oh, so he's, instead of leaving his mother to die in the mountain, he's hiding her as to not follow the law that, or the rule that was decreed. Time passed, and he was beginning to feel safe, when again the despot sent forth heralds, bearing an unreasonable and useless order, seemingly as a boast of his power. His demand was that his subjects should present him with the rope of ashes, like as evidence. The entire province trembled with dread. The order must be obeyed. Yet who in all Shinano could make a rope of ashes? Yeah, how can you make ropes out of ashes? One night, in great distress, the son whispered the news to his hidden mother. "Wait," she said, "I will think." On the second day, she told him what to do. "Make a rope of twisted straw," she said, "then stretch it upon a row of flat stones, and burn it there on a windless night." He called the people together and did as she said. And when the blaze had died, behold, upon the stones, with every twist and fiber showing perfect, lay a rope of whitened ashes. Huh? Okay. The daimyo was pleased of the wit of the youth and praised him greatly, but demanded to know where he had obtained his wisdom. "Alas, alas!" cried the farmer. "The truth must be told." And with many deep bows he related his story. The daimyo listened, then meditated in silence. Finally he lifted his head. "Shinano needs more than the strength of youth," he said gravely. "Ah, that I shall have forgotten the well-known saying, 'With the crown of snow there cometh wisdom.'" That very hour the cruel law was abolished, and the custom drifted into so far a past that only the legend remains. As we went farther on, I found the customs so different from those of Nagaoka that I felt as if I were already in a strange land. At one place, long before we reached the village, we heard a hoarse voice calling, "Makata, Makata. Is it sold? Is it sold?" As we rolled through the one narrow, crowded street, we saw an auctioneer standing high in the midst of the dozens of bamboo baskets of beans, carrots, greens, and bamboo shoots, while lying around him, in ungainly confusion, were every size and shape of a purple eggplant and long, sprawling, delicious lotus roots. Brother looked back and laughed. "Who is he? What were all the people doing?" I asked, as soon as we reached the end of the long street and rolled out to the public road. "Is it a vegetable auction?" "Oh no, it is a vegetable auction," Brother explained. "Merchants buy in quantities, and every morning the things are auctioned off by the basketful. Weren't those fine lotus roots? If we hadn't had breakfast only a couple hours ago, I believe I was hungry." At another place, we went by a house where death had entered. Before the door stood a funeral palanquin, into which coolies with big hats and crest coats were just lifting the heavy wooden bucket containing the body. Over it was a thrown small kimono of scarlet and gold, showing that the dead child must have been a little daughter. The dress would have been white for a son. Around stood a number of white-robed mourners with white towels folded over their hair. As we passed, I caught a glimpse of a screen placed up upside down and the lighted candles of a tiny shrine. At one place, where the road ran close to the broad river, with bold bluffs coming down, in some places almost to the water, we saw a number of odd floating rice mills with turning paddles, wheels that looked like a fleet of boats standing motionless in a hopeless struggle against a strong tide. I wondered where, in that rocky country, were enough people to eat all the rice that was being ground. But when we turned away from the river, we suddenly found ourselves in a silk-cultured district, where our road ran through the village after village, each having its own mulberry plantation. The town where we expected to spend the night was only a few hours ahead when the sky began to darken with a threatening storm. Brother was casting anxious looks backward when his jinrikisha man told him that the next village was a large house where travelers had sometimes been kept for a night. So we hurried there, the last quarter of an hour before our being a bouncing, breathless race between man and clouds. The men won, rolling us up to the door, into which we ran unannounced, just as the storm broke with a downpour which it would have been hard to struggle through on the road. So they made it right before it started raining. It was an old house where we had found shelter, but I know that even my honorable father, on his journeys in ancient days, never, on any occasion, received a more cordial welcome or more kindly treatment than did we and our perspiring, laughing, boasting men at the end of our exciting race. End of chapter 11. We just got one more to go. I'm wide awake now. With all the kids screaming. Oh, I got one more chapter. I have like an hour before my reservation. You're hungry right now. I had some yogurt. I had some yogurt, so it should be good. All right. Since it helped for now, because I mentioned that since coming back from Japan, I didn't properly go grocery shopping, so all week with jet lag and stress from work, I haven't been eating or sleeping properly, so my fridge has been empty all week except for yogurt. So it's the only thing that I can fill myself up right now before pancakes. Okay, I'm going to hurry and trying to get to the last chapter so I can go and get some pancakes. What is this? Okay. All right, chapter 12, travel education. The large, well-cared-for house in which we had taken refuge that stormy night was crowded full of busy workers. With the exception of the living rooms of our host, his wife, and 2 daughters, the entire house was full of skeleton frames containing tiers and tiers of bamboo trays, each holding a network screen covered with silkworms. There must have been thousands and thousands of them. I had been accustomed to silkworms all my life. Ishi's home had been in a weaving village, and my elder sister had many silk villages on her 3-mountain estate. But I never before had spent a night in the sound of a continual nibbling of the hungry little creatures. Ew! So she can hear the silkworms eating. It filled the whole house with a gentle rustling, exactly like the patter of raindrops on dry leaves, and I dreamed all night of dripping eaves. The next morning, I awakened with a depressed feeling that I was to have a day's ride in a close-shut jinrikisha. And I was surprised when I pushed back one of the wooden panels at the porch edge to find the sun was shining. No education. Education can be fun. I just hate being tested on it. Like, learning is fun, but testing is not fun. While I was standing there, one of the daughters, about my age, came out carrying a straw mat of silkworm, wet waste to throw on a pile in the yard. For the mulberry stems and rice hulls of silkworm, waste make the best fertilizer in the world. Oh, is it now? And she stopped to bow good morning. Then she stood there in the June sunshine, with her sleeves looped back and her bare feet in straw sandals, and I squatted on the edge of the porch in my home-dyed night kimono, and we got acquainted. She told me that she took care of 6 trays of silkworms all by herself. She seemed to know everything about them, and she loved them. They're clean, she said, and dainty about food, and intelligent about their own affairs, just like people. I was so interested in all the surprising things I heard, and I was still listening when a girl came to fold away my bed cushions, and I had to hurry to get dressed. Well, said brother, after my room had been cleaned and breakfast brought in, how do you like living in a boarding house? The boarders are very noisy, I replied, and from what our hostess daughters told me, they are very particular. She says they cannot endure one particle of dust. Even a withered leaf will sometimes cause one to tie on his blue handkerchief and creep to the outer edge of the tray. Have you seen our host's grandmother? Asked brother. No, I didn't know there was a grandmother. She went early to her cushions last night, probably to escape the bustle and annoyance of our abrupt arrival. We will pay our respects to her before we leave. When breakfast was over, our host took us to the grandmother's room. She was a very old lady with a reserved manner and a face of more than usual intelligence. As soon as she bowed, I knew that she had been trained in a samurai house, and when I saw the crest of a niginata on the wall rest above the shoji, I knew my brother had wanted me to come to his room, or this room. A niginata is a long, light spear with a curved blade, which samurai women were taught to use, partly for exercise and partly for defense in case of necessity. This one bore the crest of one of our northern heroes. He was a traitor, but nevertheless he was a hero. When he was killed, his daughter was one of the group, 3 of them women, who defended the sorely pressed castle during the last desperate hours of hopeless struggle. The old lady told us, with modest pride, that she had been a humble attendant of the daughter and was with her at that dreadful time. The niginata was a memory gift from her honorable and beloved mistress. Seeing that we were deeply interested, she brought out her other treasure, a slender, blunt knife called a kogai, which was the throwing dagger, forms part of the hilt of a samurai's long sword. In very ancient days, Japanese warfare was science. Artistic skills was always displayed in the use of weapons, and no soldier was proud of having wounded an enemy in any other manner than the one established by strict samurai rule. The long sword had for its goals only 4 points: the top of the head, the wrist, the side, and the leg below the knee. The throwing dagger must speed on its way, true as an arrow, direct to forehead, throat, or wrist. But the blunt little kogai had many uses. It was the key that locked the sword in its scabbard. When doubled, it it could be used as chopsticks by the marching soldier. It had been used on the battlefield or in retreat, mercifully to pierce the ankle vein of a suffering and dying comrade. And it had the unique use in a clan feud when found sticking upright in an ankle of a dead foe, of bearing the silent challenge. I await thy return. Its crest told to whom it belonged, and in time it generally was returned to its owner's ankle. The kogai figures in many tales of romance and revenge of the Middle Ages. I was glad to see brothers so interested, and was happy myself in watching the old lady's face flush and light up with her memories. But her closing words made me feel sorry. To some remark of brothers, she replied, "Youth is always listening eagerly for marching orders, but the aged can only look backward to sad memories and hopeless dreams." As I mounted my jinrikisha and bowed again to the entire group of family and servants bowing in the doorway, I could not help sending a thought farewell to the busy little boarders. I learned more about silkworms during that short rustling visit than in my 14 years of life in the silkworm district. As we rolled along over a smooth, monotonous road, my mind was busy, and I believe that then and there I first began to realize, vaguely, that all creatures, however insignificant, were intelligent about their own affairs, just like people. Dear me, I finally said to myself, how much we learn when we travel! And I pulled the jinrikisha robe over my lap and settled myself for a long ride ahead. I think I must have gone to sleep, for I found myself crookedly but comfortably snuggled into almost a kinoji when I heard Brother's voice. We were entering a good-sized town, and he was leaning back and pointing across the tiled roof to a castle on the hill beyond. "This is Komoro," he said, "and there's where the foot-high dolls came from. I smiled as my mind flew back to the Nagaoka home and pictured 2 enormous dolls of the festivals set brought by our Komoro great-great-grandmother with her wedding dowry. In her day, the government permitted only the daughter of a daimyo to own dolls a foot high, and her entire set must have been wondrously handsome. But in my time, when our living came principally from the visits of second-hand man to our go-down, the wonderful Komoro dolls, with the miniature furniture of gold and lacquer, the perfection of Japanese art of the Middle Ages, gradually found new homes. They went, I know, to no go-down of Japan, but through some shrewd dealer into foreign hands in foreign lands, and probably today are calmly resting in a widely scattered homes and museums of Europe or America. 2 of the dolls had become defaced in some way, and thus being unsealable, they were placed on ornaments on the high tokonoma shelf in my room. I was very fond of acting out scenes of the stories that were told to me, and I used to take down the dolls and use them as an audience while I strutted around the room representing an ancient samurai with some fearful duty to perform. The dolls' heads were movable, and thus supplied a splendid opportunity for a favorite revenge story of mine. Many a time I have placed my hand on one of the enameled heads, and with my ivory paper knife and a sword has struck fiercely at the doll, at the same instant lifting out the head from its collar of rich brocade. Then with stern, set face, I would hurriedly wrap the head in a purple square of crepe and, tucking it under my arm, stride boldly off to an imaginary courtroom. So she just did a reenactment of beheading someone. I suspect my father knew of this barbarous game of mine, for I always borrowed his purple crepe fukusa for this purpose. feeling that something belonging to him would give dignity to the occasion. But I never heard Honorable Grandmother step on the porch that I did not quickly restore the head to its brocade nest in order to save her another anxious fear that I was growing too bold and rough over to find a husband. As our jinrikisha rolled through the town, I looked up to the castle with interest. And this was the home from our Komoro grandmother had gone forth on her wedding journey to Nagaoka. Half buried in trees it stood, the gray tipped up corners of many roofs peeping through the branches. Drink more water. Yeah, I did. It looked like a broad, low pagoda, towering above a slanting wall of six-sided stones, the tortoise back of all Japanese castles. From Komoro to Nagaoka, it must have seemed like a long trip to the young girl in the teetering bridal kago. I thought of what Honorable Grandmother had told me of her own month-long bridal trip. A month long? That's crazy! And then I looked ahead. The Itsumo gods, who plan all marriages, had decreed the same fate for many brides of our family. And, so far as my own future was planned, it seemed destined to follow in the footsteps of my ancestors. At one place where we had to take kagos, I disgraced myself. I dreaded a kago. The big basket swinging from the shoulders of the trotting coolies always made me dizzy and faint. But that day it was raining hard, and the mountain path was too rough for a jinrikisha. I stood things as bravely as I could, but finally I came so sick that brother had the baggage taken off the horse and wedging me in between the cushions on his back. Covering me with a tent made a straw mat and disdaining comfort for himself, walked all the way up the mountains beside me, the coolie following with the two kagos. At the top of the sun was shining, and when I peeped out from my tent, brother was shaking himself as my poor Shido used to do when drenched with rain. And remember, Shido is her dog. I ventured to apologize in a shamed voice. Kago sickness is a great absorber of pride, Etsubo. I'm afraid you have lost your right to be called your father's brave son. I laughed, but my cheeks were hot. As he helped me to the ground, brother pointed toward a wide spreading cloud of smoke floating lazily above a cone-shaped mountain. That's the signpost for the robber station, he said. Do you remember? Indeed I did. Many times I had heard father tell stories of the small hotel at the top of a mountain where the rates were so high that people called it the robber station. I was a big girl before I learned that it was a very respectable stopping place and not a den of thieves, where money was extorted from travelers as tribute. We walked down the mountain, passing several cave shrines. In one I caught the twinkle of a burning lamp. It reminded me of the hermit caves of Echiko. This was my first long trip from home, and it was full of strange new experiences. Yet there seemed to be a familiar memories connected with everything. I wondered vaguely if I should find it so in America. One day after a shower, as the man stopped to lower the top of my jinrikisha, a sudden burst of sunshine showed me. High up on the mountainside, pressed flat against the green, an immense white dai, the Japanese character meaning great. It looked as if it had been painted with a brush, but Jia, who had once been there, had told me that it was made of strips of bamboo covered thickly with paper prayers tied on by pilgrim visitors to the temple at the top of the mountains. Nearby was the rude little village where Mio lived. She was Jia's sister, and we spent the night in her house. It was a queer place, a sort of cheap hotel for country people. Mio, with her son and his wife, met us at the door with the deep bows and many a ma of surprise and pleasure. The wide entrance opened into a big room having a clay floor. Several casks bound with hoops of twisted bamboo were piled in one corner. and from the smoky ceiling hung a bulging bag of grain, bunches of mochi cakes and dried fish, and bamboo baskets containing provisions of various kinds. We passed through a mob of chattering pilgrims who had just come down from the mountain, and crossing the stones of a crude little garden, reached the rooms where Mio lived. Everything was clean, but the paper doors were patched, the mats yellow with age, and the cloth bindings worn almost through. Mio must have had a rather hard time in the past, for she was an independent character, who, in violation of all traditions, had cast off a worthless husband and brought up her 4 children herself. Of course, it was very low class to do a thing like that, but she was as brave as a man. And since her husband had no parents, she had been able legally to keep the children herself. Mio had been a servant in our house when brother was a child, and her delight in seeing the young master was pathetic. Her bare feet was pattering over the mats, slipping quickly into her sandals each time she crossed the door sill to the kitchen. She hurried here and there, bringing us the best she had and offering everything with bows and apologies. One thing troubled her very much. She had only wooden trays with no feet, and she had never known my brother to eat off a low tray. In the days when she lived at our house, even an informal serving of cake was presented to him on a high lacquer stand, just as it was to father. But she was ingenious, and presently she brought in a brass-bound rice bucket with many bows and an anxious, "Please grant your honorable pardon," placed the tray on it before brother. He laughed heartily and said that even a shogun had never received a similar honor. We sat up very late and had a most interesting time. Brother talked of past days and many things about our home, so little known to me that I felt as if I was reading some old, half-familiar book. I had never known him to be so free and merry as he was that evening. And Mio, half laughter and half tears, talked rapidly, asking many questions and interrupting herself continually. She was reminding him of some incident of his childhood, when he abruptly asked, "What became of your own choice husband, Mio?" "Hello, Psycho Jr. JR. Hello, welcome." I thought that question was too cruel, but Mio calmly replied, "Young master, the rest of one's own sword can be brightened only by one's own effort. I am still paying the penalty of my life mistake." Very gravely, she went across the room to a big chest and took out a small flat package. It was a square of purple crepe, bearing our crest. With a serious face, she unfolded it, showing a brocade charm bag such as we children used to wear to hold up the paper blessing of the priest. The gold threads were a little raveled, and the heavy scarlet cord mellowed with age. "Oh no, why are you sad?" "Don't be sad." Mio lifted it reverently to her forehead. "The honorable mistress gave it to me," she said to brother, "the night she let my lover and me through the water gate. It held square silver coins, all that I needed." "Ah," brother exclaimed excitedly. "I know. I was a little boy. It was dark, and I saw her coming back home, carrying a lantern, but I never understood what it meant." Mio hesitated a moment. Then she told us. When she was employed in our house, she was a very young... I miss the girl that I love? Oh? Where is this coming from? She was very young, and she was the sister of father's faithful Gia. She was allowed much freedom. A youthful servant, also of our house, fell in love with her. For young people to become lovers without the sanction of proper formalities was a grave offense in any class, but in a samurai household it was a black disgrace to the house. The penalty was exile through the water gate, a gate of brush built over a stream and never used except by one of the eta, or outcast class. The departure was public, and the culprits were ever after shunned by everyone. The penalty was unspeakably cruel, but in the old days, severe measures were used as a preventative of law-breaking. Mother always rigidly obeyed every law of the household, but she saved Mio from public disgrace by taking the lovers quietly at midnight and herself opening the big swinging gate for them to pass. No one ever knew the truth. It is said, concluded Mio sadly, that the hearts of those who pass the water gate are purified by the gods, but even so, the penalty of a lawbreaker can never be evaded. In secret, I have paid the penalty, and my children were saved from disgrace, but the heavenly kindness of the honorable mistress of the Inagaki. We all sat quiet for a moment. Then brother said bitterly, the honorable mistress of the Inagaki was many times more merciful to the servants of her household than to her and only son. Impatiently, he pushed his cushion aside and abruptly said good night. The next morning, our road wound along the side of the mountain stream, awkwardly threading its way through the series of angular gullies, finally ending abruptly in a swift, slopy leap into a wide, shallow river, which we crossed on a boat pulled by coolies. This river was the scene of one of Gia's most exciting stories. Father, on one of his hurried trips to Tokyo, had found it flooded and had ordered his coolies to place his palanquin on a platform and carry it on their heads through the whirling waves to the opposite shore. One man was drowned. Oh no! As our jinrikishas rolled along, I thought of how often Father had gone over that road amidst the state and pomp of old Japan. And now his own two dear ones, his eldest and his youngest, were following the same path in rented jinrikishas, simply garbed and with no attendant except a wheezy old coolie with a baggage horse. How strange it seemed. At last we reached Takasaki, the place from which the celebrated land steamer started on its puffing way to Tokyo. That was the first time I ever saw a railway train. It looked to me like a long row of little ruins, each with a narrow door opening on the platform. It was late in the afternoon, and I was so weary that I have little recollection of anything except a scolding from brother, because I, feeling that I was entering some kind of a house, stepped out of my wooden shoes, leaving them on the platform. Just before the train started, they were handed at the window by the train official, whose special duty was to gather all the shoes from the platform before starting of every train. I went to sleep at once, and the next thing I knew, we were in Tokyo. She's so cute. She took her shoes off before she entered the train. But that's nice. All right, we are done. Done with chapter 12. We're about a third of the way done with the book. Get your waffles. Yeah, I have like half an hour or so to get there. All right. Thanks for coming to our morning voice reading. I am fully awake now, fully energized, and I'm gonna go get my waffles and pancakes. All right. I will post up my schedule for next week tomorrow, and yeah, I will see you next week. Sorry for leaving abruptly, but I gotta go meet my reservation time. Alrighty, thanks everyone. Bye bye.